Okay, and we're live. Welcome to our bi-weekly charm schools. We'll be posting a schedule of all the upcoming charm schools on juju.ubuntu.com/events.
So, all right, I'm gonna have to start.
Sorry.
Okay, everyone know what to do? Bruiser, is there anything you?
All right, sorry about that. I had my own video playing. So yeah, we haven't done a charm school in a while, so we're a little bit rusty. So we're now going to get back into the groove of doing one every 2 weeks, and we're going to do these all the way going up through Christmas. So today we're going to start with something that people have been asking about for a while. That's been very important: charm testing. This is the ability for us to test charms in an automated manner, so that we know when something's broken before we allow things to commit. And if you've been paying attention in the review queue, you've noticed that. Like a bot posting, hey, this thing totally failed tests every time you do a merge proposal and that sort of thing. So I think, why don't we just spend about 5 minutes before we dig into Marco's amulet bits on what exactly is our goals here as far as doing this. So we know that we want to eventually gate what we allow in the charms store based on the ability for those charms to pass tests. Is that an accurate assessment? Everybody?
You kind of broke up for me there, George.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So I just wanted to spend. So what's our goal over the next 6 to 9 months as far as tests and gating them in the charm store? Tim, I know you've been working a lot on automated charm testing, and we'll show everyone the results page of all the automated tests that we're running so far and the work that we've been doing. So I know Matt's been doing a lot of manual work, right, to see if a charm works on power, right? He's like manually deploying this. So let's kind of talk a little bit about what your goals are as far as being able to automate this process, so we spend more time fixing things instead of doing things that computer's better at. How's that for a starting question?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of things that has to be done before we can do a charm review. It has to pass proof. It has to pass, the tests. And one of the great things that we've added this cycle is automated testing. So we don't have to manually pull it down, run the test, see if it works, then do all that. The automated tests are doing it for us. So I'm really excited about that, improving our charm quality and improving the speed for us to review.
And do we have a general idea on how many charms currently have tests? Like, how far do we have to go here?
I don't know.
No idea.
Okay, so we're still
at a ballpark 30% have tests.
How much?
30% have tests.
That's not as bad as I was fearing. Okay, that's good. All right, so what we as in like Canonical and Ubuntu, we'll be running automated testing on how many substrates, on how many clouds on people's charms?
Right now we're doing LXC, AWS, and HP Cloud, and I think there are plans to expand that at some point.
Yeah, and we'll also be testing that on different architectures as well. So expect Power and ARM, but I do not think we have a date as to when those architectures will be available. So we do definitely want to test across many clouds and as many cloud providers. Like, as soon as we announce support for a cloud provider, we'll start testing charms on those. So we'll kind of handle that on behalf of the community, right? We'll just run a whole bunch of tests, and if you have a charm with tests, then we'll just handle that, right? And on your charms page, it'll say whether you pass, fail. If a charm's in the official vetted charm store, not in a personal namespace, at some point, even though I don't think we've figured out policy for this yet, is we're going to start gating charms based on those test results, right? So if you have an old charm that broke and nobody cares about it, if it's flunking, I'm of the opinion of we'll just start to ditch them, and then when someone cares enough to fix them, we'll put them back in. So in order for this to happen, charms need to have tests. So I can't just magically add tests to charms, right? What have you been doing for me, Marco, as a charm author to make this like really awesome and easy for me?
Well, you actually can magically start adding tests to charms, George.
Oh, really? How do we do this?
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you guys can see it.
Obvious setup. It's obvious.
That was a great segue. So I've got a few charms that I've pulled down here. The Minecraft charm and the MongoDB charm. Right now, the Minecraft charm is only available for Precise. So we want to push it into Trusty. Current policy dictates that any charm in the Trusty series must have testing of some form. That testing can take the form of many different shapes. We have things like integration testing, which are what we call amulet testing, or other testing that actually does a full deployment of the stack and then does verification that the deployment succeeded properly. We also have the concept of embedding unit tests. So if you're writing your charm in a language that supports unit testing, you can actually write unit tests for that. And depending on the coverage of your unit tests, would also allow you to get your charm into the store, into the Trusty series, instead of having to build out these large-scale deploy tests. Of course, many charm authors opt to do both, where they're writing unit tests for their hooks, as well as modeling deployment tests, integration tests that our test runners will run. And that's completely up to the author. But we need some semblance of testing in order to make sure that as charms age and as charms are modified, that they keep working throughout the life cycle of the series that they're tied to. So I've gone ahead and pulled down two, MongoDB and Minecraft. The Minecraft charm is actually a very simple charm. It's written in Bash. Bash doesn't really have a semblance or an idea of how to do unit testing. There's some programs out there, but they're not very good. So I'm just going to write a very simple integration test to make sure that Minecraft deploys and it's answering, it's responding on the proper ports, and a few other things. So what you can do is if you install the latest charm tools, you can run charm add tests. So what this will do is it'll create a tests directory, and it'll just put a very basic auto-generated test for you as a template to start working with to build out a test for the charm. So if we go ahead and pop over to test, we have two files. We've got 00 setup. Basically, this is just a file that's executed that sets up all the dependencies for the testing infrastructure. In this case, we're installing Amulet. Amulet's a tool that was created to allow you to write these kind of tests where you can deploy services, relate services, configure services, and then run cursory checks against them to make sure that they've set up in the way that you've anticipated. So this is good. It does that. And then it creates a 00 autogen file. So what this does is it just is an automatically generated test file just to get you started. A bootstrap, more or less, test. So what this does, this one's written in Python. It imports Amulet, which is a Python module. It creates a new deployment. This allows you to, this deployment will be what actually is executed in the environment. And then you can kind of walk through and do various levels of things. So the first thing I'm going to do is just move this out of the way. I'm going to call it 01 deploy. All the test files inside of the test directory are executed in lexiconal order, where 00 autogen would technically execute before 00 setup. We want to execute setup before autogen, so this will become 01 deploy. I'm going to open up 01 deploy again. And so Minecraft is kind of simple. It only relies on itself. There's no relations, so I'm just going to say add Minecraft to this deployment. And then I'm also going to expose Minecraft so I can access it from within, from outside the environment. So what this does is this will deploy the Minecraft charm, and since this is coming from the Minecraft directory, it'll actually deploy the local version of it, and then it'll expose Minecraft to the world. If I wanted to change configuration options, I could do d.configure, and this will allow me to change different configuration options and verify that they actually work as intended. So I'm going to leave that out for now, but that's available for you. We'll also make sure that a link to the documentation for Amulet is available. The next couple lines just kind of set up the environment. So d.setup basically says take what I've described in the previous lines up here and actually deploy that to an environment. The testing infrastructure has these environments pre-configured, and as we can show you a little later on in the Hangout, you can actually run tests directly from your machine if you wanted to verify these deployments. Those environments will be inherited from there. But we just say set it up with whatever environment's configured, and then we ask it to wait. And we're asking these what we call a sentry. And I'll talk about what that is in a moment. But basically we're saying is deploy the service and then wait until the environment is completely idle. So there's no hooks running, there's no further actions that are pending. We can make sure that we have a completely idle environment and make sure that it's where we want it to, so we can start validating it with tests. We achieve a lot of this through this concept of sentries, which are these auxiliary services that live on all of the units in an Amulet deployed test environment, and allows us to interact with the environment very directly. And it allows us to validate some things and do some extra things that Juju can't quite do or wasn't really designed to do. Things about how we can query units directly and do a lot of validation. So D.Sentry lets us inspect these units directly, and what's outlined in the bottom of this file is all the things you can do with these sentries that are deployed. So if we get past all this where we didn't get a timeout, so the deployment succeeded without a timeout, and some deployments take quite a long time. This is a suggested timeout of 900 seconds, but we've seen some deployments take upwards of 45 minutes to deploy, especially when we're talking about some deployments that are very large, like the big data deployments. It can take quite a bit of time. You can tune the timeout as you see fit. So barring there actually being a timeout, so if there's a timeout, we just say, hey, that's cool, Amulet's going to raise that this was a skip test because the environment wasn't ready. If anything else goes wrong, Amulet will bail. The test will essentially fail. And then we get down to like actually writing declarative lines that allow us to say, if this is here, this is there. So the best way to describe this is I'm going to switch over to an existing test. I'm going to show you some tests for MongoDB that were written by one of our charm authors. And we can kind of see how MongoDB does its validation for Mongo deployments. So I'm going to go ahead and just quit out of this. We're going to pop over to Mongo test directory. So we have a few tests in here, and we have the setup file like we've seen before. We have some tests that actually run unit tests. So these are doing unit testing against the charm itself. The main one that we want to look at today is the Amulet test, which is the 200 deploy test. So in here we have some very similar things we've seen in the previous example. We're importing Amulet. There's also some additional dependencies in this case. There's the Mongo client for Python, and there's the requests module. We have some configuration options the authors exposed, but we have the same stuff here. So we have a deployment, an Amulet deployment defined as D. We're adding a config server, which is actually going to be the MongoDB charm, but it's going to be called config server. And we're going to set it to scale at 1 unit based on this parameter. We're also adding Mongo, shard1, and shard2, again, based off the MongoDB charm. We're configuring all the services now, so we're changing different configuration options. We're setting the replica set names for each of these items. And then finally, we're creating relations, and we're mocking all of this up before anything happens. So this is essentially designing a slate for deployment. It's really creating, in the back end, a bundle that runs. Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick question. So what do you recommend charm authors put together here? So obviously, for the Mongo one, right, like the default bundle we show people is like the three shard like config and stuff like that. So do you recommend charm authors do a simplistic one, or do you want them to exercise every single possible combination, or a combination of all those things? Like, could you do a simple set, and then maybe a simple set with a bunch of caching, and then maybe a more complicated? Like, how deep do you recommend people go here?
I recommend that you write a test file for every common deployment scheme you can see your users using. That way we can exercise those common deployments and ensure they're working properly. So in this case, we're modeling MongoDB that's scaled and sharded. There's a couple other tests I think in here that do other MongoDB configurations that users commonly wish to use. Okay. But you should try to exercise as many different permutations that you think your users would do or that you want to support in the charm in these tests. And since we have this infrastructure to allow us to run these tests, we don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about you having to constantly run them, or charm reviewers having to constantly run them, and potentially run up a cloud build as an example.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Marco, I had a question. Sure. At the top of the file, you pointed out something that I find is a common maybe misunderstanding or needs to be clarified. So the top of this Amulet file, it requires other packages that may or may not be installed on the system, the Mongo, the PyMongo, and maybe requests. So we should talk about where those go, and you don't have to worry about those being on your system because we have a virtual environment, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point. So if you go into the 00 setup file, this is where actually all the dependencies are being installed for this charm. So it's installing Python setup tools. It's adding the stable PPA, which is where Amulet lives. Installing Amulet, Python 3 requests, PyMongo, charm tools, Python mock, PyMongo, all the stuff that you need to install.
Okay. But these are being installed in a virtual environment, right? So these won't stick around on my laptop when I run these tests. Is that right?
So they will actually. This one doesn't make use of this charm does not make use of virtual environments.
Okay.
It totally could. That's kind of a new pattern we've developed. I know we have some posts out there that document it. I think Tim will go over that in a little bit. In this case, it installs just on your machine.
Okay.
You could safely run this inside of a Vagrant instance or Juju Vagrant instance or inside of a KVM or a clean VM if you were worried about dependency mashing. That's definitely a possibility as we start looking towards saner ways to isolate dependencies, mainly using virtual environments for Python tests, etc. So that's a great point. It's not actually doing it in this charm, so it might not be the best example to show people as far as how to do the whole entire testing from start to finish on your charm, but this is just specifically for the Amulet test portion of it.
Okay.
But great point, though, regardless how the dependencies are managed. Let's go back to 200 deploy. So we then do the same thing you guys have seen before, where we try to run a D setup. We wait for the sentries to finish completing. If there's a timeout, then we just raise an alert saying we're skipping this because we reached timeouts, the environment's didn't set up. Then what this author has chosen to do is set up a dictionary of these services. These all map to what we call each sentry for service. So there's a d.sentry unit. Each unit has its own sentry entry. So in this case, he's just making it easier to reference the config server, Mongo, shard1, and shard2 later on in his tests. And then finally, he's defined a set of methods that get executed in order to validate things are working properly. So he validates that the status interface is responding properly. And he does this by calling the config sentries, the config sentries sentry for the info, the public address, and then verifies that it's responding to requests properly. Likewise, he does several other things, validating world connectivity, validating that the services are running. So in this case, he's executing, for every service that's running, he goes through and executes the run command, which will allow you to run any command that's supplied as root on the machine, and validates that each one of those report that MongoDB is running properly. Validating that relationships are being set correctly, validating that the connections are actually created and validated. So there's all this inside the tests using this sentry concept where you can connect to each node individually, query relation data, query information about the service, execute arbitrary commands.
Did he just go dark, or is that just me?
I can't hear him
Oh,
or see him now.
oh, 1 second. Okay, if he has issues, we can probably start showing the test results. Oh, looks like his sound went out. He's just going to reload. If anyone has any questions so far, you can just ask us in #Juju on Freenode, and we'll go ahead and address those for you. Okay, so he has zombie processes or something, and he's going to have to deal with the plugin or something. So Tim, while he comes back, so I've written my amulet test for my charm. I pushed, and then somebody, this being you and the stuff you're working on, will automatically run these tests, correct?
Right. So I just wrote a blog post on this
Sure.
yesterday, so I'm going to kind of use that as an outline to talk
Sure.
about automated charm testing. We've been working on this recently. The goal is to be able to continually test all of our charms in our bundles that we officially endorse in the charm store to make sure that we have some ongoing metric of quality, and we can kind of feel confident that things are actually working by constantly running tests whenever we change something. So what we've got right now is a Jenkins Slave, and is this big enough for people? Oh, let me share my screen.
Yeah, share your screen.
Forgot that. Is that visible? You guys see that?
I see a VM with a black screen.
Uh-oh. Okay. Well, hang on then. I'll just share my whole window then. Okay, so Jenkins Slave. Whoa. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, just don't move the window and you'll be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got a Jenkins Slave setup that runs all the automated charm testing. This is roughly what you would see as an anonymous user. You can see all the builds going down the left here. This is what's actually running the tests, and the tests get run whenever, well, in a couple of different situations. Anytime a new charm or a bundle or an update to an existing charm or bundle is pushed to the charm store, we'll automatically fire off a test for that. We will also automatically trigger tests when something new hits the review queue. So that can be, again, a new charm or bundle or a modification to an existing one. So if you haven't seen the review queue, this is it, and you can see this column here, second from the right, running down. There's black boxes, red and green, and those are the test indicators. Ideally, at some point, what's going to happen is as soon as something hits the review queue, it'll automatically trigger a test. Right now, a charmer has to actually click the button here to fire off the test, and then when the test complete, we get a call back from Jenkins that tells us whether it passed or failed. Man, video horridness.
Yeah, it's just delayed.
Okay.
Power through.
Okay, so you may wonder at this point, well, when these automated tests are getting kicked off, what's actually happening? What's being run? The tests themselves are executed by Bundle Tester, which the code for which you can find under the Juju Solutions GitHub namespace. Bundle Tester is a Python project that will sniff out the tests that exist for any charm or bundle and then execute them. And I have an example here of, I just ran Bundle Tester against the Meteor charm, which is one that I wrote, and you can see the default output is you're going to get for every test that's run, you're going to get a green pass or a red fail. And there's a lot of different options of Bundle Tester to let you adjust what the output looks like, what tests are run, etc., etc. But this is the underpinnings of the automated testing is Bundle Tester, because it automatically finds and executes the tests that exist. Man. Okay. So what does it detect and run? Obviously, it's going to run unit tests that you have. It's going to run, well, that's not exactly true. It will automatically find amulet tests. So what Marco was just talking about with Mongo, if you've got a test directory and it has executable files in it, those will automatically be detected by Bundle Tester. Other things that it's going to pick up are it's automatically going to run charm proof for every charm. And if you have a make file that defines make test or make lint targets, it will automatically execute those as well. So all your functional tests, and if you have make targets, it'll run those, and it'll run charm proof. So tips for charm authors. This is, okay, who cares? You're going to run tests. How does this affect what I'm doing when I'm writing a charm or thinking about writing a charm? The main thing is, first of all, you need to be writing tests because we've got no other way of knowing or gauging the quality of the charm. The automated testing is only as good as the tests that exist and the quality of the tests that exist. So this is kind of a reminder that you need to be testing your charms. When you're running tests, you want to be running them with Bundle Tester because that's what we're going to run when you upload your charm. Bundle Tester is easy to install. You can install it with pip. If you go to the GitHub page, there's the pip install command right here. It needs a couple of extra flags because of some dependencies that we have that are not on the Python package index, but it's still just one command to install Bundle Tester. There's other doc on this page that shows you how you can configure how tests are executed and discovered by creating a test.yaml file in your test directory. And yeah, Marco pointed out Bundle Tester will eventually completely replace charm test, the charm test command, which is what most people use now. So it's good to get used to running Bundle Tester on your own. When Bundle Tester passes for you, you know that when you upload to automated testing, it's going to pass there as well. So that's the first thing. Make sure you're running Bundle Tester. Secondly, if you're writing unit tests, and we hope that you are, right now it's important that you make sure that your make targets, which Bundle Tester runs, actually install the dependencies that your tests need. So in my blog post here, I have a sample make file for a Python charm that for the make lint and make test targets, it automatically creates a virtual environment and installs the dependencies that are required for testing and linting into a virtual environment, so they're there and they exist when those targets are executed. Just make sure you're doing that. We've seen when we first started automated testing, we saw a lot of failures due to people just assuming that dependencies exist because they've been around on their system for a long time. That won't necessarily be true on the host that's running the test automatically. Configuring Bundle Tester behavior, I covered that, just touched on it. There's examples on the GitHub page if you want to read more about how to configure how your tests are executed. And finally, next steps. What do we have planned coming up for automated testing? There are a couple things at least. Charm Guardian, which I didn't touch on, probably shouldn't go there now, but it's another wrapper around Bundle Tester that gives us some handy things. So what we actually run on Jenkins is Charm Guardian, and we do that because it makes it easy to do a few things. First, fetching charms and bundles from a variety of different sources. Charm Guardian supports fetching things directly from the store, from Launchpad, from GitHub, from Bitbucket. It can even take Launchpad merge URLs and automatically pull down the two branches, merge them together, and then run tests. It knows how to find related bundles for charms that have changed. So if you change a charm, it knows how to also test all bundles that contain that charm with the updated charm. It can run tests in parallel across many different substrates, which is handy for us when we're testing AWS, HP, LXC all at the same time. We have them running in parallel. And it knows how to take all the results and get them as JSON and smash them all together into one nice report. So there are great things about Charm Guardian, there are great things about Bundle Tester. One of my goals eventually is to merge these two tools together so that there's just one awesome charm testing tool and we avoid confusion about which one does what. And then finally, and this goes to Matt's point about where are your dependencies installed when you run tests, we want to start running bundle tester or having bundle tester execute its tests inside a container, either an LXC container or a Docker container, so that you can install all dependencies you want at the system level. You don't have to worry about creating a virtual environment in your makefile. You just install whatever you want. The tests get executed, and then the whole container gets blown away. So it's easy, clean start, and easily reproduce a clean system every time you run tests. One thing that I realized I forgot to mention is the test results page, which this is, if you want to see, this Jenkins view is kind of ugly, all these builds, yeah, whatever. But if you want to see the test status of everything in the charm store, this is it. This is a public report that has pass-fail status for everything. We're working hard to get these green as quickly as possible. For all of these, you can click through and see the actual output of the tests. So check that out if you're interested. And that's kind of a whirlwind overview of automated testing. I hope that wasn't as rambly as it seemed in my head, but are there any...
That's fine. So what I know we haven't talked about policy, but it might help to talk about it now since we're looking at it. Is when we're going to do gate. So when I've noticed when someone submits a charm or does a merge proposal, like we have a bot or something posts that that the test has passed or failed.
Right.
So what's the lead time like? So let's say I'm a charm author and I'm doing this. Like, what exactly happens here? Do you guys do like a full-blown thing on every substrate? Do you do like a subset to find like how comprehensive is it compared to what I'm seeing now, the existing charms in the store?
If you look over here, I think you guys can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
I see black.
Not yet.
Awesome. Pretty metal. Let's try some more time.
I think you picked the wrong screen.
Oh, I picked the right screen. All right.
Oh,
Let's
okay.
just do it in this window here, because whatever. Google Hangouts is not liking me today. Share screen. Share screen.
There we go.
You guys see this?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. There you go.
So, as Tim was talking about the automated review testing and the substrates we currently test, those are the ones that will get tested when it enters the review queue. This is what these pastel-colored squares are. These are testing results from Charm Tester for the last iteration of testing. Currently, the testing is a manual process, meaning someone has to come in here. For instance, this one's still pending. Click on it, and then have the test get queued. I am not logged in, so I can't initiate them. Which is another point.
I thought those were automatic. Okay, okay.
No, it's not currently automatic. There's a few problems with making automatic and tripping up over itself. The idea is to make this automatic in the somewhat near future, where whenever new commits or a charm is ready for re-review, it'll just automatically be in-queued in the testing servers.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, only charmers who are logged in can initiate tests. We may be opening up that depending on how long the stopgap this needs to be until we get actual automated testing running.
So Marco, after a test gets queued up in the review queue here, does it automatically send the results to the merge proposal or the bug?
So yeah, that's a great question. So let's find a couple here. So here's one that was run. So if we open up this by clicking on the external link, the review queue, once it's actually received the results, will post that the item has passed or failed, and we'll actually link to the results that Tim was showing you earlier. So if we open up this results page, we can see exactly why it failed. So we've been having some intermittent issues with HP Cloud. That's just infrastructure-based issues that shouldn't really be showing up in the tests. But we can see that charm proof returned to 200 code. We can go find out more details about what that is. Make lint and make test both return error codes of 2, meaning indicating they failed, and the same for the LXC. So this charm has proofing issues as well as some linting and test issues that aren't quite working the way the author has designed those tests to. So it allows us to then go in, either the author themselves or anyone in the community or a charmer, to review this page to see what's going on, and then if it actually is, if this, for instance, this is a red herring, whereas these are actually issues that can be acted upon by going in and clicking through or running charm proof locally to see what's going on, and it also allows the author to look to see why they have broken. So that's where these results will be recorded. They'll be recorded on Launchpad or wherever the charm is being housed, and then the results will always be permanently stored here in the reports section of the charm testing. Did I lose you guys again?
Nope, I can hear you.
Okay, cool, awesome. That's all I have for that.
Did you want to finish up before you hung up the last bits of your amulet, as far as putting that in your charm itself?
Yeah, I suppose we can do that. Let's go back to the terminal. So I'm not sure where I cut out. Apologies again for having some issues. But as I was mentioning, the author has described several methods that get executed that exercise various things: verifying relation data, validating that MongoDB is responding on the proper ports and addresses that it's supposed to, poking to make sure that files are created properly. All this stuff can be done through sentries. To your point earlier, George, you were asking about how many models should be represented. So he has one for deploying, which is a very basic scaled-out amulet shard. And then there's another test here, which is relate ceilometer, which is actually something that's very specific to the OpenStack deployments of MongoDB. But he also exercises that relation. That is a very common test case, use case for the charm, is to have MongoDB deployed within an OpenStack environment. So this test file structured slightly differently, but it still uses Amulet at its heart. So we create a the Amulet deployment. We add several services: MongoDB, ceilometer, configure the services, relate the services, stand up the services, and then using a unit test style file, we actually just go through and execute these tests to validate that they are actually where they're supposed to be. So in this case, we're validating that the ceilometer unit has a ceilometer configuration file put in place, and that there's no other errors that are being raised, and that the public address for Mongo is in the ceilometer file. So this is what that test file does. It's very simple. Just need to set up and validate that use case is working. And so as more people deploy, or as more permutations of MongoDB arrive, those can just be added as tests to model and validate that they work properly in the charm itself. That's pretty much all I had to say for that. This is also where you put the test.yaml, if I'm not mistaken, Tim, in the test directory.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. So there's nothing here that's required outside the defaults for the testing environment, but that's where you put these as well. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Is there can we fire off one to see what it looks like live? A test somewhere?
Automated or from the command line?
Let's do a bundle tester one.
Yeah, something meaty.
All right, Tim, you got any examples?
Yeah, let me share again. So I'm in a charm directory, and I've already pip installed bundle tester. The options that I like to use are -F, which means if something fails, go ahead and continue executing all the tests. So if you leave this off, if it's a failure, it'll stop right there on the first failure. You can tell it an environment. This is good enough. If you want like lots of debug output, you can set debug output verbose, all that good stuff, but this is all you need. You don't have to run it from the charm directory either. You can run it from anywhere and just say -T and give it the path to your charm. So that's another way to run it. Bootstrapping the environment is the default option. Again, that's something you can change with a test.yaml file. You can tell it that you don't want to bootstrap at the beginning. Another thing that happens by default is between every test, it will reset the environment, which is another thing that is configurable in test.yaml. But you can see here, the first thing it does is it bootstraps, then it runs charm proof for every charm. Now it's inside the test directory. It ran my 00 setup file, and next it'll run the one functional test that exists in this charm inside the test directory. This particular charm doesn't have unit tests, so it's not hitting make lint or make test. If somebody tells me one that does, I can run it against that. If anybody knows off the top of their head, the Mongo one?
Have a make test target?
Yeah.
I believe it does. Let me just check. I saw some make targets in there. No, it just has unit test.
Okay.
The Elasticsearch. I believe the Elasticsearch charm has a make test target.
Okay. I'm going to kill this because the last test takes a little bit of time. But you can see at the top of my terminal the last run of this. It eventually passes, and then it tells you how many tests it ran, the status, how long it took, and all that good stuff. Let's see. Elasticsearch.
Yeah, the trusty version of Elasticsearch.
Okay, so good. Make lint, make test. Actually, I want to start over and that's Juju destroy environment alias. Start with a clean. Okay. I should have run this one with the debug output because it's kind of cool to see what everything that it's doing behind the scenes, but
So when it does fail, Tim, will it show why it failed or where it failed after the bundle tester runs?
yeah, that's right. At the end of the run, it'll give all the tracebacks and any relevant output that you need to see what actually went wrong. Unfortunately, I don't know how long these tests are going to take to run because I've not done them before.
I defaults changed. There's 3 test files, so it might actually take a while. Oh, the first one finished.
Okay, so the first one aired out. Can we look at that one and just see what? Look at that file you had that open in a different window.
We can, but we're not going to really know where to start looking.
Oh.
Maybe we shouldn't have used the F flag.
Yeah, you're right. That's what I was just thinking. Always kill it and do it again.
And then you totally do the debug output as well.
Okay.
While he's doing that, how long does it usually take? Let's say I go into the review queue and I'm going to review a charm and I click the button. How long does it usually take for those results to come back?
It depends. Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Like if you're a reviewer, do you wake up in the morning, click a bunch, go do stuff, then come back? Like what? Like we talking hours?
I basically, whenever I log into the queue and I see this gray, I just click to get them initiated. I don't, even whether I'm reviewing or not, just to get.
Oh, okay, I see.
But the test will take, depending on the charm and how big the backlog is, it could take anywhere from a few minutes to an hour or two to show up. The maximum test execution time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, is going to be 2 hours. So a test could take up to 2 hours to run before it times out in the testing infrastructure.
Correct. So I don't know if you guys saw, this is what happened with make test. It's missing a package. I've actually seen this a number of times. This is where isolating your
Environment
for your make targets is necessary. Do we want to fix this live right now, or
we got 10 minutes? If you can fix it in 10 minutes, we should totally do it. Show people how to do it right.
Yeah.
Well, this is how I do it.
Like how we avoided it being the right way. It's just this is Tim's way, which is also a great way to do things for those of you watching.
So make sure virtual environment or virtual env is installed. Now, many Python people will cringe at this, but the reason it's necessary is because the failure told us we need Python apt, which does not install very nicely via pip. So we install it with apt-get, but that means we have to expose it to our virtual environment. So we set that up, and then we want to, let's see, for tests are running nose test 3.
So you need a Python 3 virtual env?
Right. Which I don't think I've actually done it with Python.
Well, you need to run the VM, or Python 3 VM and a bunch of other flags. I can get you the line for it. It's not nearly as nice looking as virtual env for Python 2.
Okay. I haven't done it. I'm just going to show how I would do it with Python 2, because that's what I've done before. Solid virtual environment, blah, blah, blah. Then you basically that. And then here.
We'll just make it nose 2.
Nose 2?
Just make it. I mean, just make, no, no. I'm sorry. Just make it nose, and just run nose tests instead of nose test 3. Just make it Python 2 tests.
Right. Technically, we should also install Flake8 here and then make this dependent on the virtual environment. And then I like to add a up.
The path for Flake 8's wrong, but it should be fine. It'll use system Flake 8.
Path.
Yeah, it's using Flake 8 on the system in the lint target.
Because of the add thing? That's why is
No,
it?
it's just because you're not referencing the one in the virtual M.
Oh, you're right.
That's fine. It's just
Okay. Now, this is something about adding hooks to the path. Alright, I might run out of time here.
you got 6 minutes.
Oh man, you can do it.
Well, I don't really. Let's see. I'm gonna test hooks and something's not being added to the path. Let's see. Um, let's see. Now I'm really on the spot.
Isn't that error just saying that it can't find hooks, as hooks isn't technically a Python package?
Yeah, that's fine because we're running out. So let's just go ahead and summarize everything. Okay, so for charm authors, definitely want you to get started with Amulet, which you'll find fully documented on juju.ubuntu.com/docs. Any last bit of advice there on Amulet itself, Marco?
No, check out the docs. The project's pretty straightforward. There's going to be a lot of changes coming to it in the near future, as well as some improved documentation, so you can look for that on the docs and on the mailing list.
Okay, awesome. And as far as the automated testing framework and all that stuff, that continues to be a work in progress. We made a lot of progress the past 2 months now that we got Tim on board working on this full time. So I believe the past at least a month or so we've been concentrating on going through these charms, turning as many of them from red to green as possible, so we don't have to have Matt doing stuff by hand because he probably got tired of that very quickly. And then going forward, that's when we can start talking about automatic gating, kicking out broken things, and just in general raising the quality of the charms that are in the non-personal namespaces. So with that, thanks for joining us. Let me just give you guys a quick status on the next Juju Charm Schools that we'll be running here. 1 second. What was the schools? Hold on. The webpage isn't updated with all the topics coming up until Christmas. So we will be doing. Give me 1 second. I had it here. Anybody find this on the list? I totally had it. No, I do not. 1 second. Here we go. All right. I call them charm workshops now. Okay, so today's October 3rd. We did getting started with charm testing. On the 24th, we're going to do relationships and interfaces, how to pass information in between charms. Marco, that's going to be me, you, and Ben, I believe. So that's like 20 days from now. November 21st, debugging hooks. I don't remember who we assigned for that one. December 5th, writing charms for restrictive networks. And I hope to get someone from IS here to talk about more restrictive environments that don't have egress. I think, Bruiser, you've got a bunch of expertise there as well. And December 19th, we're doing automated charm testing infrastructure, so you have until December 19th to finish off everything, Tim, and then we'll go ahead and review it again. And that'll be all the charm schools then for this calendar year. So next one, October 24th, relationships and interfaces. Hope to see you all there. Thanks very much for coming.